This video is going to talk about the percent of change. That can be either a percent increase or a percent decrease. To find that percent of change that you're looking for, you're going to take the amount of change and divide it by the original number. So, for example, if I start out at 17 and I go down to 6, let's say this is how many baskets were scored in a basketball game. What's going to happen is we want to know what's that percentage of change. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find how much did we change by. So what's the difference between these two numbers? 17 minus 6 is 11. So I'm going to put 11 up top. And in the bottom, I want to put the original number. Not always the biggest number, but the original number. In this case, I started at 17, so I'm going to put 17 on the bottom. Now, when I go ahead and do my division for this, which I'm going to punch into a calculator, I'm going to get 0.647. And what we need to do now is we need to convert this decimal into a percentage, which means that it's going to turn into 64.7%. That is my percent of change. In this case, there was a 64.7% decrease because my number went down. But there can also be percent increases. So let's take a look at what happened if I start out at 12 and I go up to 15. So, first thing I want to know is I want to know how much did I change by. 15 minus 12, because we're looking for the difference between 15 and 12, is going to be 3. So I changed by 3. Awesome. What did I start out at? Remember how I told you it doesn't always have to be the biggest number? I started out at 12 and I changed to 15, which means I want to put down 12 as my original number. When I do the division, I'm going to get 0.25, and when I change that into a percentage, I'm going to get 25%. 25% is the amount of increase, because from 12 to 15 is bigger. So there was a 25% increase in this case. And there's one more thing to look at. And what you're going to want to do here is what happens if someone gives you a percentage and either the first number or the second number. So for example, 20% increase from 50. So what's the 20% increase from 50? Well, now we need to adjust this formula a little bit in the way that we set it up. Now this 20% is going to go where the percentage goes. But do you notice I didn't write 20%? I changed 20% from a percentage to a decimal, because that's the way you work with numbers when they're actually in the equations. I don't know how much the change is going to be, but I do know that I'm starting out at the number 50, which means that I need to figure out what is the amount of change here. And because I don't know, I'm going to put an X. So what I'm going to do next is I need to get that X alone. And we've talked about how to do this a number of times. What I need to do is I need to do the opposite of whatever number is attached to that X. In this case, I'm dividing by 50, so I need to multiply by 50 on both sides, which tells me that X is the same thing as 50 times 2 is going to be, 50 times 0.2, is going to be 10, which means my amount of change is 10. So my new number is not going to be 10. My new number is going to be my original number plus the amount of change. Because this is an increase, I'm going to add the amount of change, which means that a 20% increase from 50 is going to result in the number 60.